Welcome to Real Estate Roundup. I'm Emmanuel Romanis. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sitting here with you today, entering the dog days of summer with a nice Long Island iced tea. And quite frankly, the only thing that we can do is relax and enjoy ourselves during the next month of August. But I couldn't resist. I had to take another sip. I want to start off the program, though, sitting here in front of you, ladies and gentlemen, as a very humbled and grateful man. When I started this program back in April, I really had no idea what to expect. The response that I've received from you, the viewers, is simply overwhelming and touches my heart. And how I know this is via the mailbag. As I've said during each show, if you want to contact the show, you can simply send us an email at realestateroundup@outlook.com. Our mailbag is bursting, literally bursting, which tells me two things. Number one, you're watching, and number two, you like what you see. And that's the whole point of this, is to provide you with a show that's entertaining, hopefully, but more importantly, can give you some useful information that you enjoy tuning back into. So I'm deeply grateful for the response, for the support, and I hope we can continue on. With that, let's come to our segment of Who Knew? And what we're going to do today is focus strictly on the mailbag. This is going to be a mailbag show, but before we get to that, we're going to switch to our segment called Who Knew? And we're going to talk this month about weeds. Weeds are an irritant for every property owner. Whether you have the resources to have your lawn professionally maintained or you have to do it yourself, no one can escape this nuisance. Compounding the issue is the environment. Green is in, pesticides are out. So the question is, how can you eliminate those pesky weeds in an easy, inexpensive, environmentally friendly manner? We'll have the answer when we come back. Stick around.
Hi, I'm John Walsh, owner of Bethel Bakery, and we are celebrating our 60th birthday this year. We have plenty of events scheduled for this summer and certainly hope that you can join us for our sweet 60th. Each day, now through August 31st, one lucky customer will win a $60 Bethel Bakery gift card just by registering in the store when a purchase is made. Also daily, our Facebook fans can like and share the photo we post on our wall for a chance to win a $6 Bethel Bakery gift card. We also have a community cookie fundraiser with the proceeds supporting 3 organizations in the community: the Joey Fabus Foundation, the Bethel Park Community Foundation, and the Bethel Park Public Library. Each week we are featuring a throwback and new baked good, and if you were born in 1955, make sure to stop in for a free cupcake. Updates are posted on our website, bethelbakery.com. Bethel Bakery, baking life sweeter since 1955, takes great pleasure in serving all our customers. Stop and visit us as we celebrate 60 years of sweet memories.
Welcome back. Well, before the break, we were talking about weeds and how to get rid of them in an inexpensive and environmentally friendly manner. I have 3 tips for you. Number 1 is simple boiling water. After you have that cup of tea, just take the rest of the water outside and pour it over the weeds. The boiling water will shrivel them up and have them die. Number 2 is simple white vinegar. What you do is you take an empty spray bottle, fill it with white vinegar, and maybe 6 or 7 drops of ordinary dishwashing liquid. And what you do is simply spray it on the weeds. Now what the dishwashing liquid does is it'll break down any leaves that are waxy. and that way the vinegar can penetrate and kill the weed. It's the acidity in the vinegar that actually kills the weed. Now, you have to be careful with this where you spray, because the vinegar doesn't know what it's killing. So if you mistakenly spray it onto a plant you want to keep, it's going to kill that plant too. So be careful, but it works great. And again, just be careful where you're spraying it. The third tip is simple newspaper. Let's say you have a bed of mulch down and weeds are growing up among the mulch. You simply take newspaper, lay it out. You want to make it maybe 10 to 12 layers thick, and you do it like you're making lasagna. You'll lay down the newspaper, you'll throw some mulch over it, lay down the newspaper, throw some mulch over it. Usually one layer of newspaper is enough to do it, but if you see that the weeds are still coming up, again, you may want to lay down another layer of newspaper and then throw some mulch over that. But the newspaper works wonderful. It'll kill the weeds, it'll stifle them out, it'll block sunlight, and it works like a charm. So again, these are three very inexpensive, in fact, they're all household items, very inexpensive ways to kill weeds, keep on top of them. They're environmentally friendly, and it's just a great tip if you don't want to use pesticides. So again, who knew? Okay, as I had mentioned before, we are going to dedicate today's show on the mailbag. A lot of great questions, so let's just get right to it. The first one is from Sally, who's from Bethel Park, and she wants to know, how do I know if the home I'm buying has lead-based paint? Excellent question in this area because a lot of the homes are older. That does come up quite often. The seller must disclose any known lead-based paint on the property. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission issued a final ban on lead-based paint in 1978. Thus, if the home or property is built before 1978, the seller is required to provide the home buyer with the EPA pamphlet, Protect Your Family from Lead in Your Home. Now, no one is required to test for or mitigate for the lead-based paint. They are simply required to disclose that lead-based paint exists. And then at that point, the buyer and the seller can negotiate from there what they want to do and who wants to pay for what. So Sally, great question. Again, that comes up very often in Western Pennsylvania. I need a drink. It's summer, remember? I need a drink. The next one comes from Peters Township. Albert says, I'm thinking of purchasing investment property in an area known for flooding. What does flood insurance cover? Well, the best advice I can give, Albert, and it's kind of cliche, but it's true, is check the policy. Flood insurance policies are different, so you need to check on what exactly the policy you're planning on buying covers. However, the general rule of thumb is the physical damage to a building or personal property directly, and that is the key word, directly caused by a flood, is covered by flood insurance policies. So for example, if your sewer backs up and ruins your dishwasher, that's not covered. However, if the sewer backup was a direct result of flooding and then your dishwasher was damaged, then the policy would cover that. So again, it's physical damage to a building or personal property directly caused by a flood is covered by flood insurance policies. Okay, moving on. Janelle from South Park. My husband and I own an apartment building. Let me start again. My husband and I own an apartment building that does not allow pets. Yet we were told by a friend that we cannot turn away someone with a support animal. For example, a seeing eye dog. Is this true? Well, in a word, Janelle, yes, it is true. Otherwise, you would be violating fair housing laws. The Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, meaning if you have children, and national origin. So your case falls under disability. Though you do not allow pets, you must make accommodation for someone who has a support animal. Again, it's the law, so you really have no choice in this matter. Another drink. Again, the dog days of summer makes you very thirsty. Okay, Sam from Bethel Park. I'm selling my home on my own. That right there is a bad choice, Sam. Of course, I'm biased. But anyway, Sam says he's selling his home on his own and has an interested buyer. The roof needs repaired, and I'm asking the buyer to pay for half the cost, to which he is refusing. Am I being unreasonable? Well, Sam, in a real estate transaction, as I've said many times, everything is negotiable. However, in my opinion, a house should have a roof that is sound, i.e., it's not structurally deficient or leaking. So I would have to argue that this cost be borne by you, the seller. A house needs a roof that works, and that's the seller's responsibility. Again, if you're able to negotiate for the buyer to pay a portion of it, great, good for you. But in my opinion, again, Sam, I really think this is the responsibility of the seller. Okay, moving on to Upper St. Clair. Great questions. Again, I'm really impressed by the questions that we're getting, but also the diversity of questions. I mean, they're just all over the place. A lot of really educated and concerned viewers out there with regard to real estate and property. Karen from USC. As executor of my mother's affairs, I am in the process of selling her home. Attached to the deed is a document titled Coal Notice. What is this? This I had to investigate because I've never heard of someone actually getting a coal notice. I kind of knew what it was from when I took my real estate exam. It was part of the exam, but I never actually met anyone, Karen, who had the document titled Coal Notice. And this is due directly to mine subsidence. Because of the possibility of mine subsidence, Pennsylvania law requires that sellers provide a coal mining notice to purchasers indicating that the structure on the land may not be protected against damage caused by subsidence caused by coal mining. So your mother received this document when she purchased the home. That's what a coal mining notice is. It has directly to do with mine subsidence. So again, she received this notice when she purchased the house, whenever that was. So that's what that is. Staying with Upper St. Clair, we now go to Abby's letter. The seller removed 2 ceiling fans from the townhouse I recently purchased. There's nothing listed in the sales agreement stating that these would be removed, and it was never discussed. Can the seller do this? Well, in a word, no. They can't. Once the ceiling fan is installed, Abby, in the ceiling, it's considered real property and part of the house. While it's still in the box, it's personal property. But once you actually affix it to the home, it becomes a part of that home. So if the issue was not negotiated prior to closing, then as the new owner of the home, the ceiling fans are considered your property. Now, what you can do to remedy this after the closing is really up to you. You know, is it worth getting a magistrate involved and all that for a couple of ceiling fans? I don't know. There are different avenues you can take, but technically the fans belong to you as the new owner. Darn, that's good. That's just good. Okay, William from Peters Township. I recently purchased a cottage near Tionesta that has a 100-gallon underground storage tank to store heating oil for the winter. My new neighbor asked if my tank was registered with the EPA. How can I find out, since the tank was already there when I purchased the cottage? William, you have a very interesting neighbor. Good luck with him to even raise this issue with you. Quite frankly, I think he's just toying with you. But there are certain types, technically he is correct, there are certain types of underground storage tanks which are exempt from federal regulations and do not need to be registered. Underground storage tanks, or USTs, do need to be registered with the federal government. However, as I mentioned, there are some that are exempt. Now, there are two conditions that make your storage tank exempt from having to be registered. Number one is it's under 110 gallons. Yours is only a 100-gallon tank. So that alone would make it exempt from not having to be registered. But also, it's used to store heating oil that is burned on the premises. So either one of those would make your underground storage tank exempt from having to be registered. You have both of them in your favor, but either one of those would do. Again, it sounds like you're going to have your hands full with this neighbor, William. But it's a good question. I'm glad you brought it up because no one else probably would have. You don't see underground storage tanks in residential settings that often around this area. But anyway, good luck with your neighbor. Okay, we now move back to Bethel Park. And Nancy writes, I rent half of my duplex to help pay for the mortgage. My tenant passed away with 8 months remaining on his lease. The person handling his estate told me that his death automatically terminates the lease. Is this true? Well, Nancy, no, that is not true. That is incorrect. The tenant is automatically released from a lease if the premises would be totally destroyed. However, death of a tenant or even the sale of the property does not terminate the lease. So the lease is still valid and the estate of that person still legally owes you 8 months rent. So the person that you were speaking with is incorrect. Death of the tenant does not automatically terminate the lease. Your lease is still in force. Okay, moving on. Ruth from South Park wants to know, her parents are looking to downsize, and she toured one facility with her parents that was listed as a cooperative, and she didn't know what that was. She asked, what exactly is a cooperative? Well, in a cooperative, a corporation actually holds title to the land in the building. The tenant, in this case your parents, if they would move in, would own shares of stock in the corporation. Now, unlike a condominium, Ruth, where the tenant owns the real estate, in a cooperative, the tenant's shares of stock is considered personal property. So the tenant does not own the real estate. They own shares of stock in the corporation, which is personal property to the tenants. The corporation owns the land and the building. Now, cooperatives are starting to gain popularity for several reasons, including the tenants are able to use their shares of stock as collateral and financing. More and more banks are allowing them to do that. Also, there are income tax advantages from the payment of property taxes in a cooperative situation. And of course, there are freedom from property maintenance costs. Now, I'm guessing in your case, your parents are probably older, don't need anything quite as big, and probably don't want to deal with any of the maintenance. So in that regard, a cooperative is probably a very nice setup for them. But just realize that's the difference between a condominium, which is probably most of what you're looking at. In a condominium, your parents would actually own the real estate. In a cooperative, your parents own shares of stock in the corporation, which owns the real estate. So that's the difference. You don't see cooperatives too often in this area. They are starting to gain traction, but you don't come across them quite as often as you would, say, apartments or condominiums. Now, Jim from Bethel Park writes in that his daughter is trying to purchase her first home, but is having difficulty due to an existing mechanic's lien. He claims that he's never heard of this before. What is it? Well, a mechanic's lien, Jim, just like the name makes it sound, is a lien for people who perform labor or furnish materials to improve the real property. Contractors, architects, surveyors, people like that. It's a specific involuntary lien that gives security to those types of people. This type of lien is filed when the owner has not fully paid for the work, or, and this is important, when the general contractor has been paid but has not paid the subcontractors or material suppliers. And that's really important, and several people get caught up on that. I have a home and I want to put an addition on, and I hire a general contractor. Now, he hires 2 or 3 different subcontractors to do different parts of the work, the carpentry, the bricklaying, whatever the case may be. I pay my contractor, the general contractor who I have a contract with, I pay them in full. Let's say it's a $50,000 job. I pay them the $50,000. So I'm thinking it's done, the contract is over, it's satisfied, I made payment, they did the work, everything is done. However, the contractor, the general contractor that I have a contract with, did not fully pay all of his subcontractors. He paid the carpenter, he paid the finishers, but he still owes money to the bricklayers. The bricklayers can file a mechanic's lien against my property, even though I paid my bill in full, because the general contractor did not complete his end of the bargain. I'm responsible for that. Kind of sounds goofy, but that's the way it works. So again, let me read that. This type of lien, a mechanic's lien, is filed when the owner has not fully paid for the work, or when a general contractor who has been compensated but has not paid the subcontractors or material suppliers. So, Jim, if that was the case, you would still be on the hook for those debts, and that's why the lien would be against that property. So in your daughter's case, the house that she's trying to buy, the current owner would have to satisfy those liens before the transaction would be able to take place. Unfortunately, it's really out of your daughter's control. The current owner needs to satisfy that lien before title can be passed. So, you know, what can be done about it? It's really in the seller's court. Unfortunately, your daughter's going to have to wait. Okay, last one. Need a drink. Great questions, great questions. Peters Township again, Carol. What's the difference between a short sale and a foreclosure? I'm really surprised that someone asked this question. We come across short sales and foreclosures within the real estate industry. They're not uncommon to this area. You don't see a lot of them. They were much more common back during the recession, the crash of 2008, 2009, 2010. You're not seeing quite as many now, but it's a wonderful question. Carol, both are very complex transactions, and they're very time-consuming transactions. Very basically, basically, in a foreclosure, the lender takes over the property and tries to sell it to satisfy a debt. In a short sale, the borrower will ask the lender if they're willing to receive less than what is owed on the property. Typically in a short sale, the borrower owes more than the market value of the property. So they'll go to the bank, for example, and say, hey, look, I owe $150,000 on this home, but the market value is only $130,000. If I can sell it for $130,000, will you accept that to satisfy the debt? In essence, that's what a short sale is. It's to satisfy the debt for less than what the mortgage is. In a foreclosure situation, the bank just takes it and they try to sell it to satisfy the debt. Typically, a short sale is the step before an all-out bona fide foreclosure. Again, they're both very complex, very time-consuming transactions, but very generally, that's the difference between the two. We do come across them. We come across short sales. We come across foreclosures. Again, not as prevalent now as they were back in 08, 09, 2010. Saw a ton of them back then, unfortunately. But they do still happen, and that's the difference. Okay, with that, I'm going to refill my glass, and let's take a break. Stick around. Welcome back. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show. And once again, I'm very grateful that you enjoy it, that you're looking. If you want to reach out to us, simply send an email, realestateroundup@outlook.com. Until next time, have a great rest of the summer, and thanks for watching. Take care.